Everyone. Welcome to a regular board meeting of the Palo Alto Unified School Board of Education. Today's November 2nd, 2021. The board met in closed session and took no reportable action. So our first agenda item is going to be approval of the agenda order. We're going to be doing roll call because we have a board member appearing virtually. Dr. Austin, would you mind doing it with preferential vote for our student board members first?
Should I make a motion?
I suppose that would be good.
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
So moved by Dr. DeBrienza, seconded by Mr. Collins.
All right, Mr. Costa,
Aye.
Ms. Barini,
Aye.
Mr. Collins,
Aye.
Ms. DiBrienzo,
Aye.
Ms. Vladimiric,
Aye.
Mr. Dauber,
Aye.
and Mr. Drop.
I also vote aye. All right, the agenda is approved, and we're moving on to reports. Our first report is Dr. Austin's report.
All right, thank you. I had the opportunity over the weekend to attend a conference of superintendents, which had about 60 from across the United States. In fact, from all over the United States, anywhere from Montana and Wyoming to Arkansas and Texas to New York and in the upper states. And it was really fantastic to talk through some of the issues that are facing all of the school districts across the country. And some of the themes that I heard are things that you're reading. Board meetings becoming confrontational and in some cases flat out dangerous. And people being attacked on either end of issues. And just another reminder that our meetings have remained civil throughout, and that's been a really good thing for us. Was also reminded that a lot of districts, and I can say states across the country, are behind us. They're so far behind us that they can't focus on student achievement and those things. I was with the superintendent of Dallas Independent School District, and we spent quite a bit of time together. And pretty recently, he had put in a masking mandate that was in opposition to his state's mandate. And then other urban districts followed. But you can look as recently as just a couple months from now, and that's a state with a completely different approach. We had not governors, we had superintendents from Florida and then up and down our coast as well. So it was good to calibrate with the other superintendents. We were able to share and highlight Palo Alto. And the last thing I'd say on this, it's easy to forget when you're here how much our state, and more than I even knew, districts across the country are following what we do. And they may not agree with everything we're doing, but they read it, they consider it. So that's a responsibility for us as well. So that is it for my report tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Austin. All right, now we have our student board member reports. Let's start with Ms. Barini.
Thank you. So since we last met, we have been holding diversity events at Gunn. Unity Day, I believe, was 2 weeks ago. And today we celebrated Dia de los Muertos with a performance from the Tri-M Music Honor Society at Gunn. It was really nice. They handed out a pan de muerto, and we had an altar to honor our lost loved ones. This Friday, our fall play, Robots versus Fake Robots, is premiering. It's a really cool concept. It's set many years in the future, looks into the question of human identity. Gunn Theater is always amazing. I recommend checking it out. I'm pretty sure it runs for the next 2 weekends. We held the SAT at school last Thursday. That was open to seniors, and there was a pretty good turnout, about 100. Halloween happened at Gunn. We held a Halloween event last Friday. We had trick-or-treating around classrooms, as well as a costume contest during lunch, and YCS, Youth Community Service, put on a trunk-or-treat outside of school. Next week, we have a blood drive, which is a usual collaboration between American Cancer Society Club, Health Occupation Student Organization Club, GunMed, YCS, and Stanford. And then finally, sports are doing pretty well. Fall sports are coming to an end. Senior nights have been happening in the last few weeks. Some great things happening as fall sports come to an end. Our boys water polo team is league champions for the second year in a row. Our girls tennis team is league champions, and football is going to the playoffs. Winter sports are starting up, so that's going to be basketball, soccer, and wrestling. And I'm excited to see them compete in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you. As a former gun water polo player, very excited about that. All right, Ms. Akata?
Hello. Since we last met, Pali Athletics has been transitioning out of fall sports and into winter sports, with winter sports holding tryouts this week. Fall sports senior nights have been happening the past few weeks as well, and the volleyball and tennis teams are preparing for the CCS playoffs. As for performing arts and media, the C Magazine released their first publication of the year today. Pali Theater is hosting their opening night of The Illusion this Friday, and Pali Choir had their first concert since the pandemic on October 22nd. The Pali speech and debate team had a Cottonwood tournament over the weekend, where the captain won in the Lincoln Douglas debate, and Pali Robotics made it to the quarterfinals of the Chessie Champs. Additionally, Pali's Film Club will be hosting a horror film festival on the 4th during lunch, and the Latinx Club will be holding a Dia de los Muertos celebration during that time as well. As for ASB, we have been debriefing Spirit Week, wrote thank you cards to volunteers that helped out during that week, and partnered with the Wellness Center and Bring Change to Mind for trick-or-treating and bringing light to mental health. Finally, we have a site council meeting on Monday the 8th at 4:15. And to end on a positive note, the fences surrounding the quad are coming down on November 22nd. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, thank you for the update. We're moving on to open forum. Any member of the public can comment here on a non-agendized item. You can go ahead and input your comments at pausd.org/comments for this and for every agendized item going forward. We have one member of the public who wishes to speak, Stacy Ashland. Ms. Ashland, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you, Trustee Shawna Darup.
Ms. Ashland, if you could hold on for just 1 second, we've got some tech issues here. Don't worry, your time isn't ticking. I'll let you know when we fix the volume. All right, Ms. Ashland, I think we can try again.
Okay, hi. Thank you to the Board of Trustees and Mr. Darup for taking my comment. I wanted to comment on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Palo Alto with regards to the City Council recently in September passed an ordinance regarding safe storage of firearms in homes. And as part of that progress, we are now working to educate the Palo Alto Unified community. So to that end, we are requesting that the school board take action as other local school boards have done recently. Earlier this year, Mountain View Wisman, which is K through 8, and Sequoia Union High School District also passed ordinances, resolutions along this lines. The two examples pulled from those resolutions include, the first one is, be it resolved that our suggested wording is that the Palo Alto Unified School District School Board direct the superintendent to create an appropriate communication to parents and guardians that explains the new ordinance, the importance of safe gun storage, and the legal obligations to protect minors from negligent gun storage to be distributed annually. And the second part was, be it further resolved that the board and superintendent will continue to work with local law enforcement agencies, health agencies, and nonprofits to collaborate and increase efforts to inform district parents of their duty to safely store firearms in their homes. Thank you for your support of this important initiative to keep our children, families, staff, and educators safe in our schools. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ashland. All right, we're moving on to our consent calendar. These items are considered routine and will be approved in a single action without discussion. If a member of the public would like to speak to one of the items or a board member wishes to pull it, we will address that item directly below in action. I see we have one comment on the consent calendar, and that is from, let's see, Johanna. Can you please tell me which item of the consent calendar your comment is, and we'll go ahead and pull that.
Yeah, my comment is on 4I, so board policy on sexual harassment.
Okay, thank you.
So I move that we approve the consent calendar. We pull I and approve the rest of the consent calendar, A through H.
Okay, so a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of I, moved by Dr. DiBrienza, seconded by Mr. Collins. And Dr. Austin, if you could call the roll, please.
Thank you. Ms. Acosta,
Aye.
Ms. Brini,
Aye.
Mr. Collins,
Aye.
Dr. DiBrienza,
Aye.
Ms. Latimerik,
Aye.
Mr. Dauber,
Aye.
Mr. Drop.
Aye. All right, we'll address that item now. Item I, Board Policy 5145.7, Sexual Harassment. Let's take our comment first from Johanna. You'll have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you so much for letting me speak. My name is Johanna Sia. I am a junior at Palo Alto High School, and I just want to make some comments regarding the updates that were included on the sexual harassment policy update. So one thing that really stood out to me was I think specifically on page 5, there were like lots of major edits regarding having a clear message that student safety is a district's primary concern. And for that, I just have a few things to keep in mind and thoughts about that. One thing that I really want to emphasize is that I want to make sure that this information is accessible and understandable. One large complaint that I've heard and one thing that I've really experienced is that with Title IX and sexual harassment policies and all these different things, many students find this inaccessible because of a lot of the legal jargon or a lot of the wording. This page of edits was about 11 pages and it did take me a while to read through, and it was often quite confusing going through all the different policies, the different organizations. So I think one of the biggest focus should be making this information accessible to students in a way that is really understandable. Another complaint within that same category is about making Title IX information accessible to students and making it public. We were discussing this in Pali Student Council about how the Title IX information is at the very bottom of the pusd.org website. A lot of the information is very hard to shift through and understand. Another point to keep in mind is that we were discussing having education about consent and sexual harassment be something continuous and making an important lesson, because in students' lives, you really need to solidify the idea of consent, the idea that not just in a sexual setting, that consent is something very important to keep in mind, just being considerate of people's lives and not violating that. We also talked about, or one thing that I also noticed in the edits was having more proactive education for students, which is something that I really support. For example, like having students intervene when witnessing sexual harassment and having students understand how to support survivors of sexual assault and harassment is something that I really want to see the board do in future years. And finally, my last point to keep in mind when we are implementing a lot of these new policies or when we're discussing Title IX is about expanding it to other forms of discrimination. I know I've heard many complaints about not knowing what to do in terms of facing racial harassment or transphobia or homophobia. And a lot of times that isn't addressed as much as sexual assault. I think all of these are very important, but as long as we're expanding it so that students know that what's available to them and they can get support in those senses. All in all, I just hope that in my years of high school that I can see significant changes in Pali and Palo Alto Unified School District to improve consent education and to dismantle rape culture, as well as just see overwhelming action against all forms of discrimination and harassment. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, board members, comments, or is there a motion?
I move we approve the board policy as presented to us.
Second. So moved by Dr. DiBrienza, seconded by Mr. Collins.
All right, Ms. Brini,
Aye.
Ms. Acosta,
Aye.
Dr. DiBrienza,
Aye.
Ms. Latimerik,
Aye.
Mr. Collins,
Aye.
Mr. Dauber,
Aye.
Mr. Drop.
Aye. All right, we're moving on to the rest of our action items, and these are all actions that are to be voted on. So our first action item or agendized action item is item 5A, approval of project scope, initial budget, and authorization to proceed with design for temporary classrooms at Greendale and Cubberley.
Okay, for this presentation, I'd like to bring up Mr. Holm.
Good evening, Board. This item is the sort of return back of the continuation of the elementary project study that we did last board meeting. At the time, we presented several options for a relocated campus to the Cubberley Greendale site. One of those was option 1, which would be locating a campus in the parking lot of Greendale, essentially. After further review in the time since last board meeting, we've determined that that is the preferred option. And so this item would be to start us on the project. We're moving fast on this. So this is an initial $350,000. So we can start hiring the architects and do the other necessary engineering to get that project rolling. Once we have the drawings completed and we know what the total scope of building number that we're moving or relocatables and the total project cost, we'll bring that back in the future.
Great, thank you. We have 2 members of the public who wish to comment on this item. Let's see, well, there are maybe 4, but we'll just, so Niels and Molly Melius as one commenter, followed by Jack and Brody Melius as another. You'll each have 3 minutes. If you're making separate comments, you'll each have 3 minutes. If you're doing it together, then you can break it up and have 3 comments each. So
if you can hear me, I guess the Melius family is well represented today. If we could switch up our order and just use the time that we have, that would be fine. I think my son Jack wanted to go first, so
that'll be fine.
Go ahead, buddy. Nice and
Okay.
loud.
Dear School Board, my name is Jack Melius and I am in 4th grade at Palo Verde. Please do not close the school. I've been at Palo Verde for 5 years and it wouldn't feel right to be in a different school for 5th grade. Also, if you close the school, some of my friends will go to different schools and some might even move. Finally, I would not mind the construction. There are plenty of games to play. You can play on the blacktop.
Okay.
Thank you for your comment.
Nice job, Jack. So this is Niels Melius. First, I wanted to just thank the school board, obviously, for steering the community through the worst of the pandemic, I'm sure. And I know that was exhausting and thankless work. And it was certainly hard on all the kids who, numerous studies have shown suffered emotionally and academically, dealing with depression and academic backsliding. And so it's from that perspective, the perspective of not uprooting these kids and disrupting their elementary experience any further, that I asked the board to reconsider what I think is an ill-advised proposal to force Palo Verde's 4th and 5th graders into what sounds like a fairly makeshift facility, which under the current proposal and the proposal I just heard there in option 1 would include borrowed portables surrounded by some kind of temporary security fencing in a somewhat decrepit parking lot on a heavily trafficked Middlefield road. And the parents of Palo Verde, numerous ones that I've spoken to, have a lot of concerns, only which, a few of which I have time to address now, but I want to address some of them. First, obviously deeply concerned with the way this rush decision was made unilaterally by the board with very little, if any, community involvement or proper procedural mechanisms. The issue was not even really on the published agenda 2 weeks ago. The possibility of relocating Palo Verde specifically was a minor footnote in one of a dozen attachments to the agenda 2 weeks ago. And the community wasn't given any heads up by the school's principal, who I think has an obligation to notify the community before major decisions are made. We also have concerns about the legality of building a makeshift facility without any evidence of following proper California Environmental Quality Act procedures under California law. Second, it's an unnecessary and disappointing disruption of our children's lives, friendships, and academic experiences. Seems like the whole effort started as a plan to demolish Hoover. I think I'm almost out of time. I just want to stress that it's devastating to the Palo Verde community, and numerous families have already discussed their plans for relocating. Palo Alto schools have lost 30% of their enrollments over the last decade because a lot of families have just decided that it's simply not worth it to live here. And a huge part of that cost benefit analysis is how families are treated in the public school system, a system that has recently struggled to deliver high quality education over the past 2 years. So we think at the very least, the school board should consider option 3, which at least puts the 4th and 5th graders more on the campus, more insulated from Middlefield Road, closer to a field of any kind that they could play in, closer to the rest of their classmates. That would be, sort of the last ditch Hail Mary request. But as a final ask, we just urge you to reconsider moving Palo Verde to Cubberley. It's a school that isn't in need of urgent renovations right now. It can be done in a piecemeal manner. And as I think my son correctly put it, plenty of places to play. They love their school. They don't want to be removed from it for their final year. So with that, thank you all for your time and consideration.
Thank you for the input. All right, board colleagues, comments? Dr. DiBrienza?
Thanks so much. Just to clarify, staff decided that this was really the best course of action. And the question is for us to provide the funds, approve the funds necessary to make it happen. I just want to acknowledge, I've been a parent in the district for, 11, 12 years. And we've all probably experienced construction or disruption or whatnot. And it's hard, it's disappointing, it's a challenge. If we could do all the work and not disrupt the kids and the learning, that would be ideal. And I think given the size of some of our elementary campuses, it just poses a real challenge to have kids learning there while there's work happening there. So this was a decision that staff made, and agree it's disruptive and it has to happen at some point. We have to do this work. And also, just on a side note from our commenter about option 3, I originally liked option 3 first as well until I learned some more of the details. So Dr. Austin, isn't there a meeting coming up with the Palo Verde community to explain some of this?
Yeah, we're meeting Thursday night. Mr. Holm and I will both be there. So will the principal,
Great.
Miss Lee, and we walked the site together. And like you, option 3 was actually my thought. That looked beautiful, but that road's so narrow and windy, you couldn't even get a tractor back there if you tried, let alone a whole portable. So it just wasn't going to work.
And having had my kids' classes in some of those portables are really nice. We're not talking, yes, I will definitely admit that the parking lot is run down, but the portables themselves are real nice. And that location, if that's where you end up being, I think is as close as you can get to the rest of the campus. So I just want to acknowledge that, yeah, all of these construction projects that we're doing are an inconvenience and a challenge, but I thank you guys for making the hard decision early so that we have a lot of time to engage with the Palo Verde community, have this meeting, explain options, find out what the concerns are, and plan, over these months so that it's as smooth as it can be. Thanks.
Ms. Latimerek?
Yeah, I have similar comments. I do think it's important to acknowledge the fact that some families feel frustrated that the decision was made quickly without community input, and they're right, it was. Both of those things are true. And my perspective is that the Palo Verde community should absolutely have input into how the district can help mitigate the disruption caused by relocation. But the decision about whether or not to relocate itself needs to be made by our experts. We have to trust the people that we hire to make this analysis. And Mr. Holm and his team, I can tell you, are not making this decision lightly. They really understand how hugely disruptive this is going to be for families. But they also have the experience. I think it's really important to remember. They have the experience with elementary construction, and they have the real granular knowledge about the details of this specific project to be able to objectively balance the competing interests and determine whether the disruption to families of moving is outweighed by the disruption of education to staying. And that's the important point. I mean, the callers talked about the disruption to education over the past 18 years during the pandemic. That's what we're talking about if this product happened with kids still on the campus. So all of this being said, yes, the time constraints meant that this decision was made quickly before most people even knew it was being considered. So I get it. I understand why people feel blindsided. And I think if we've learned anything during this pandemic, it's that communicating and engaging effectively with our school community while moving quickly is extraordinarily challenging. I don't think any of us would disagree with that. But I really want to reiterate first what Dr. Austin said last meeting, which is that as a district, we have a responsibility to mitigate the impacts to families of relocating, and we know that, and we're going to do that to the best of our ability. And to that end, to reiterate Dr. DiBrienza's point, I highly encourage families to attend the meeting on November 4th. Mr. Holm is going to be there. He will walk you through the project, the decision-making around relocation, the temporary campus, everything else. So please come, bring your questions, bring your concerns, ask them, share with us. We want your input.
Mr. Collins?
Thank you. I'm disappointed with the process that this went through. I think the rushed, Dr. Austin, do I have your attention? Okay, I saw you looking at something. I think the rushed process and the lack of community input is was disappointing. It's not typical of the way we've made decisions in the past. And while there may be reasons that it was done this way, I'm disappointed that it happened this time, and I would be disappointed even more if it happened again in the future. I just think even if we feel strongly that this is the right thing to do, I think I can understand why people would feel like they were blindsided by it, to find it on one item in a very long single agenda item, and then without a board vote, it's fait accompli. And I think that's within the scope of your authority. I don't question your ability to do it. I just think I was disappointed with it, and if I were a parent who didn't understand this or didn't like it, I would be very disappointed with it. So I wanted to share those thoughts.
All right, any other comments? Okay. One thing I'd like to highlight for community members, in addition to what's been said, is we do have, there are a great deal of places where the board and the district do deep public work in our committees. And as it relates to these items, which have gone through committee, not necessarily in the same sense as with community members, but this item has come forward through committee. I encourage all members of the community to come to those committee meetings if there's a specific area of interest. So for example, the property committee met between the last meeting where this idea was discussed and this meeting, and this agenda item was discussed at the property committee meeting. And so if you go to the pusd.org website, go to About Us and go to Committees and Task Forces. You'll see a whole host of committees there, and the property committee is one of them. I highly encourage you to come and attend. They meet generally monthly, and you're welcome to attend and ask questions and sort of get a little more insight into the process for items such as this one. All right, and with that, why don't we take a vote? Is there a motion?
I move we approve the item as listed.
Second.
All right, so moved by Dr. DiBrienza, seconded by Ms. Ladimirak.
Mr. Costa,
Aye.
Ms. Brini,
Aye.
Mr. Collins,
Aye.
Dr. DiBrienza,
Aye.
Ms. Vladimirik,
Aye.
Mr. Dauber,
Aye.
Mr. Drop.
I also vote aye. All right, we're moving on to item B, future Cubberley site goals and Hoover Elementary School project redesign.
I'm actually going to take that one. If you have additional questions for Mr. Holm, he'll be available as well. Number one is to memorialize the changes to our Cubberley guiding principles, just to eliminate the district office and staff housing, and to memorialize 20 or more acres to be preserved for a future school site. And number two, to proceed with the design work for option D, and option D and 4 have been used interchangeably. So we're now going to call this option D for the redesign work at Hoover Elementary. Background information is also provided, and this really just captures what we had talked about the last meeting to make sure that we have the authority to move forward.
All right. We have 2 members of the public who wish to speak. You'll each have 3 minutes. Shayna Siegel, followed by Tamara Grayson.
Hi, I had wanted to speak about the movement to Coverly, but is this, now we're on a different topic, so is this not the right time?
That's all right. You can still speak to
Oh.
it, but the action's already been taken.
Yes, so I don't want to, yes, then that's okay, as the action has already been taken.
Okay.
I was hoping to have a different outcome, but thank you.
Thank you. All right. Tamara Grayson.
Hello, this is Tamara Grayson, and I was also hoping to speak on the Palo Verde issue. And I have a number of concerns about the remediation, like the plan for how we're going to do this for our children safely, that I would like the board to consider when they're trying to address this move. I would share the board members' concerns that making this move and voting on it by the board before you had received any community feedback in any forum that was open to the Palo Verde community is absurd. And all of the parents at the school are livid, quite honestly. I would like to know how you are going to get 400 cars down Ross, Lewis, and Greer and get them to the new school site and not have a rash of traffic accidents for all of the kids going to JLS and Gunn from our community. I would like to know how you are going to get those kids to school and into the parking lot at Coverly and turned around in like the 10 minutes that they are watched before school starts on campus each day. I would like to know where parents are supposed to wait to pick up their kids if they're in a parking lot, if they have both kinder, first, second graders, and also fourth and fifth graders that come and go from school at different times of the day. And I would like to know how we're going to address equity issues for people who cannot take that extra hour out of their day to do drop-offs and pickups in a parking lot that is not designed for that kind of flow of traffic all the way from our community. It poses an immense burden on all of the families, especially working parent families, to our community. And I want to know what practical steps we're going to take to remediate this. The most severe of which is how we're going to make sure all the kids from this neighborhood get to JLS without getting hit by 400 cars on extra cars on the road, right, on their way to school every day. So those are just the beginning of my concerns. I'm concerned about the amount of green space that is available on the playground, what they're going to do for outside time. And I have to tell you that as a parent of a 4th grade child who you're proposing to put in a parking lot for a year, that I will seriously look into other schooling options for my children. It sounds like an absolutely miserable experience. And if he had a vote, he would absolutely choose to stay at Palo Verde with construction. Thank you very much. And I will look forward to hearing more about the plan on Thursday night.
Thank you. And just a point of clarification, the board did not just vote to relocate Palo Verde to Coverly. The board voted to begin the initial process of the design and the scope so that those discussions, community discussions, can happen about relocation. So thank you for the comments. I know they are welcome, and Mr. Holm will be there at that meeting precisely so that we can gather your feedback, which is incredibly valuable, I know, to everyone involved in this. So thank you again for showing up and speaking. I'm sorry for the technical mishap about the switched comments. But again, thank you. All right. We're now going to have board comments on item B, which is about the Coverly site goals and Hoover Elementary School project redesign. All right. Is there a motion?
I move we approve item 5B as presented.
Second.
So moved by Dr. DeBrienza, seconded by Ms. Latimirak.
All right, Ms. Barini,
Aye.
Mr. Costa,
Aye.
Dr. DeBrienza,
Aye.
Vladimiric,
Aye.
Mr. Collins,
Aye.
Mr. Dauber,
Aye.
Mr. Durant.
I also vote aye. All right, we're next moving on to discussion items. These items are for discussion only and are not agendized for action. 6A is approval of scope, budget, and budget transfer for infrastructure repairs at the A and B wings at the Coverly site.
I'd like to bring back Mr. Holm.
Hello again. This item is specifically for the A and B wing, which you recall last year we did some update on when we took over the campus. And that time we've learned more about the wing, namely that the power is in serious need of upgrade. The wires running to there are crumbling, and so we really need to pull new feeders to those wings, as well as do some other infrastructure upgrades. There's a tree that we're removing that has died that has got a serious amount of asphalt heavage around it, so we're going to do some repaving and some other infrastructure modifications tied to that wing after we make these electrical upgrades, including adding some more air conditioning units in them for the students we're planning to house there. This is where our post-secondary and some additional special ed programs are slated to be housed. And so the ask tonight is an additional $200,000 for this sort of additional work that we've discovered over the past year. And this will be out of the Measure A budget bond reserve fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holm. All right, no members of the public who wish to comment on this. Board members?
I just really quickly
Ms.
want to
Latimer.
say that I know that I said at a previous meeting, I know we're only talking about a few $100,000 of repairs here. And I did make a comment at a previous meeting that I was going to be concerned about approving more money for projects until we had a macro plan for the site. But I really feel like the money pit issue that I was worried about, we've sort of addressed with the action that we just took to make a plan for Coverly and transferring some of those acres. So I think that this makes sense to me and I support it.
All right. Okay, and that will come back at some point for action. Agenda setting will take that up. All right, we are on to 7 staff reports. And our first staff report, 7A, is career-themed pathways.
All right, Ms. Ofek is going to introduce our guests tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Austin. Career-themed pathways has had an exciting few years. Initially, a concerted effort was made to revitalize the district CTE advisory committee while simultaneously working with Foothill Community College to align courses for dual enrollment credit. Dr. Che and her team led all of this work, which includes mapping out courses and pathways with teachers, bolstering existing programs to meet rapidly evolving industry standards, including internships and certification opportunities for students, upgrading classroom equipment to match current pathway trends, and applying for pathway funding through the CDE. So tonight we have Dr. Che here with some students to share the progress of the district and the impacts on the students. And so it is with hopefully you'll have some good feeling after this update.
Thank you for the introduction, Ms. Ofek. Our mission is to provide meaningful learning experiences for our students that have lifelong impacts. We do this through a holistic approach that supports students through academics, skills, career, health, individual character development, community, and innovation. By providing every student with engaging, unique learning experiences, we prepare them to thrive as global citizens and adapt to the future economy. One of the data points that allows us to evaluate our work is the College Career Indicator, CCI, which is a part of the California dashboard. The CCI measures how well districts are preparing students for education and work after graduation. The relevant variables used to calculate the CCI scores include CTE pathway completion, dual enrollment, certification, and internship. Here we see the growth of PAUSD improving from green to blue. We have a number of exciting initiatives that supports maintaining the blue status, which is the top category. Last year, we were awarded over $1 million through various state and federal grants for spending through 2023. These grants support a wide array of K through 12 programs, including equipment upgrade for classrooms and teacher PDs. For example, we partnered with local companies last summer to offer paid fellowships for teachers to bolster their industry skills for teaching. Funding through these grants contributes significantly to the quality of our programs. We concluded last year with the following results around Creativity Card, Career Month events, and CTE course enrollment. We are grateful for the opportunity to serve thousands of students every month. We have also made significant progress in internships, certification, dual enrollment, and CTE pathway completion rates. This was a true team effort, especially given some of the results started with a baseline of 0 last year. We're very lucky to have excellent teachers, dedicated community members and mentors, and a strong district team for putting students at the center of our work. I'd like to personally thank my team, Arian Toomey, Irene Wong, Jessica Tabron, Jojo Gutierrez, Kim Carlos, and Rachel Casey. And now I'm going to turn it over to students to share their learning experiences.
Hi everyone, my name is Nathan Brown. I'm a senior at Palo Alto High School. I'm currently taking Dr. Kaufman's dual enrollment sports medicine course at Valley. This course offers a pathway in sports medicine where I am earning credit for 2 college courses while attending high school. I would like to earn an athletic trainer certification after graduation. Because of my participation in the dual enrollment program, I was able to already begin this pathway during high school. I have decided to pursue this route as I was injured during my freshman year as an active soccer player. Becoming a personal trainer is not only a good alternative to being a professional soccer player, but will also provide knowledge for my future career options. Thank you for this opportunity for me to share my story.
Hello, my name is Nora D and I'm a senior at Gunn. I'm currently in the AAR program in which students get paired with mentors to conduct year-long research projects. My project will be analyzing polarizing language within congressional speeches, and my mentor works for the city of Palo Alto. I chose to take AAR because it provides a capstone project experience that allows me to examine the specific academic questions that are most interesting to me. This independence allows me to pursue both my interests in language and political science at the same time. I also get to share this experience with others beyond the collaboration with my mentor and with my classmates. A few years ago, Laguna Beach Unified replicated PAUSD's AAR program and has maintained a connection to our district. Last month, our class was invited to a virtual showcase held by Laguna Beach, during which their students shared their AAR projects. From that opportunity, my teacher connected me with a student who's researching a similar topic, allowing us to share resources. No other class allows me to explore what I'm intellectually curious about in such depth and to share that experience with others. An additional benefit of participating in AAR was that I was able to earn the 21st Century Skills Certification, demonstrating that I possess the knowledge to successfully transition from high school to college and then to the workforce. Thank you for this opportunity for me to share my story.
My name is Sarah Ekpat, and I'm a junior at Gunn. I recently transferred to Gunn from a school in Florida where I was really involved in sports broadcasting. I'm here to present about internships to the work experience program. Ms. Casey helped me to get an internship because she posted the job fair slide deck to Schoology, and when I read the slide about athletic internships, I knew right away that I was interested in pursuing it because at my previous school, I covered games and athletes through features for the morning announcements, which I enjoyed very much. So I emailed Ms. Casey and she introduced me to both Gunn and Pally athletic directors, the head football coaches, and other supporting staff at game day, where I am gaining hands-on internship experiences. It also helped me become a part of the community right away. Eventually, I plan to pursue a career in sports journalism, and these internships are helping me to continue exploring this pathway. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you to all the students who came and shared. Before we get to more board comments, We do have a community comment, and that is going to be from Kimberly Ang Lee. Ms. Ang Lee, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
We sure can.
Great. Well, as always, kudos to our students. So impressive. Thank you so much. Kimberly Ang Lee, I'm speaking on behalf of the Palo Alto CAC for Special Education. Just wanted to share that last month, the Santa Clara County Office of Education passed 2 resolutions acknowledging October as Bullying Prevention and Disability Employment Awareness Month. Our staff and students did a great job recognizing our 9th annual Unity Day, and we saw some great expressions of kindness, inclusion, and diversity on our campuses. But the second county office resolution was on disability employment awareness. And it recognizes their 2021 theme of resilience in the face of adversity. America's recovery is powered by inclusion, and specifically acknowledges the contributions of workers with disabilities. So according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2020, 18% of persons with disabilities were employed, 18%. That's a decrease in the amount from 2019, which was 19%. PAUSD has 1,118 students with IEPs. The passing of this resolution demonstrates a spoken commitment to equity and inclusion, but reminds us that there's a lot of work to be done to ensure that students with disabilities also exit PAUSD Advantage for post-secondary opportunities. The career theme pathways work enables diverse options for successful student engagement and employment, and we appreciate that PAUSD has consistently pursued federal and state grants, including Perkins V. And partnerships and community outreach. However, according to Perkins V, there are provisions requiring states to utilize a portion of their allocation in the recruitment of special populations to enroll in CTE programs. Perkins V provides the opportunity to re-envision how career pathways will be student-centered, aligning CTE to other local and regional education and training initiatives. So it's California's guiding policy principle to focus on all students and promote equity and access by eliminating the institutional barriers and achievement gaps for all, so that they can realize their educational and career aspirations. The Palo Alto CAC is interested in knowing more about how the career theme pathway efforts specifically serve students with disabilities, including those in our post-secondary program. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, any comments? Dr. DiBrienza?
I just want to say that Ms. Ofek was right, and I'm feeling very happy about all this. Thank you for all of your work, and thank you, students, for sharing your experiences. I think from my perspective, it's just like more of this, more 21st century learning, more purposeful learning, more really finding kids' interests, passions, and teaching them to be thinkers and problem solvers in ways that some of our other classes aren't really structured to do. So thank you very much.
I want to reiterate those comments. I really think this is such a strength of our district, and I don't think it's something that gets enough focus and enough attention, and I'm just so grateful for all the work that you guys do. And yes, I agree, more, keep going. We will support, I certainly will support it in any way I can.
Mr. Dauber, did I see a hand, or is that?
No.
Okay.
No.
Sorry, the screen is behind me, and
Sorry.
sometimes I see whispers of movement.
No, sorry.
All right. I echo what my colleague said. I am always very encouraged to see the steps that we continue to take to broaden our pathways for our students and capture as many folks as we can, and inspiring them to do what they love and what they will do. So thank you so much to everyone who presented. Oh, of course. Ms. Acosta.
I just think it's really heartwarming to see how the career themed pathways are positively affecting people. And it's really nice to see that the district has something like career themed pathways and that it is truly benefiting students. Personally, being a student that has taken a CTE, I actually took sports med last year and I've completed internships. It's so nice to be able to experience like how Ms. DiBrienza put it, like purposeful learning. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All righty. 7B, the Equity Impact Report.
All right, I'm excited about this one. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Conway, who's going to take us through I don't know, I guess we can call this a quarterly checkpoint on how we're doing on our 5 priority areas for the PAUSD Promise. And she's done a very nice job here boiling this down to some bullet points for not only some early successes, but also some challenges as we work through the year. So Ms. Conway, all you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Austin. Good evening, trustees. As Dr. Austin said, tonight I will be presenting a very brief update on the district's progress on our focus areas. You have the complete report in your packet, but this just outlines some things that we wanted to bring both to the board's attention and to the community's attention. Because we're proud of it, but also because inherent in any success, there's a layer of challenges that we have to get through. So I'll be sharing a few small challenges that we're still facing and some next steps in some of these areas. So you'll see our 5 priority areas here. And, as we have gone through the past couple of months, we've realized that we really were on target by identifying these 5 because our observational and our anecdotal evidence suggests that these are still the areas that we are seeing some trends in terms of our response to COVID and some areas that we really have to strengthen our response and our support for students in. So mental health is not listed first here by accident. As you can imagine, coming off of the COVID pandemic and still in the middle of it, we did see that there were some challenges there, but in the midst of that, we're really making some great progress in some areas. One is our expansion of a partnership with a group called Mindset Labs that will be providing some telehealth support to our students. This is a group that will come in and do actual group work with our students so that we're focused on building some resiliency and making sure that students have individuals to connect with when they need someone to talk to. So this is an addition to our high school wellness program, and we hope to get this launched very, very soon. We've signed the contract already and should be serving upwards of 150 to 200 students in this program. We've also been talking a lot about the role of our psychologists, and we think this is really, really critical. Our psychologists do their best work when they're doing direct support for students, but they are challenged by the responsibilities of assessments and evaluations, particularly in the special ed realm. So they are doing a lot of work on looking at ways in which they can provide more direct support to students. A meeting is coming up very, very soon to really talk about that and hash through some of that so that we can identify what the barriers could potentially be for more direct student supports. I am most proud of our increased one-to-one check-ins. We are seeing folks not just picking up the phone, but knocking on doors. So those one-to-one check-ins, when we're seeing that students are not coming to school, we're showing up at the door. Sometimes a little bit of a surprise to parents, but we're working on that element as well, making sure that parents know what to expect when it comes to our home visits. And I really have to say that our focus on SEL is really starting to shift. This is the first time in the 4 years I've been here where we've really talked about an aligned curriculum where everyone is looking at the same curriculum across the board. Our elementary schools, 9 out of the 12, are implementing a program called Second Step. They are trying it out just to see how it is. We've already gotten some positive feedback on it, but just to have all 9 schools working on the same curriculum using the same language is huge for us. But as I said, there are some challenges. As you can imagine, the needs are growing, but the availability of staff is decreasing. We do have some CASI shortages with our counselors right now. Previously 5, we did just find out today that we have 1 new hire for elementary. So we are making some progress, but we will continue to face those shortages. So our task will be to make sure that we're identifying some creative and alternative ways to meet the needs of our students in the realm of mental health. And finally, our next steps are really going to be about how do we work with our principals to make sure that we are looking at what's in our building, what resources we currently have to really use those in the most effective way to address mental health. And that's through SEL, using our counselors and our psychologists in a meaningful way, and making sure that we're doing our part to protect the time of our psychologists so that they can provide that support to students. And you probably hear about early literacy every day. If you haven't read a tweet from Miss Danae Reynolds, you're missing out because her excitement is real. OG is strong and it's on its way. I can't tell you, it's not been a single day where I have not heard someone talking about reading happening in the district. And we're seeing teachers that are really excited. Principals are talking and meeting as a team. And we're seeing teachers entering the classroom of other teachers just to see how OG practices are going. If I could name the #1 success in our district right now, this initiative, thanks to Ms. Ann Brown and Danae Reynolds, is off to a great start. So if we keep on this pathway, I expect to see some really significant changes in the outcomes of our students. But we do have some challenges, as I said, sub shortages. The staffing shortages is really what's impacting our ability to make sure that teachers are getting into the classrooms of other teachers so that they can observe and learn from their peers. But we are still moving on our next steps, which is making sure that we're looking at the data, because at the end of the day, it's the data that matters. So no matter how great we are, no matter how excited we are, if our outcomes are the same, we really haven't met the mark. So we're going to spend some time making sure that that analysis is coming to the board very soon. And finally, I'm a little partial to this one, equity. There's some exciting things happening in equity, and I'm going to skip around because I want to point out that the Board Equity Oversight Committee has been meeting, and we have started to make some really significant progress on the system-wide integrated framework for transformation. You will hear that term coming up very shortly, but basically that's how we're going to do business. What's our theory of action around equity? So we've identified some key areas that we would like to focus on as it relates to equity, and you'll see that show up in a group of action steps related to that. So that will be coming to the board soon. And I also want to point out, you've heard about the PAUSD Plus program during COVID closures. We have just relaunched it with a brand new lens, a fresh eye on free childcare for our families, intervention and enrichment as well. So our administrators have been able to find a really robust group of kids to come in and not just focus on what their deficits are, but finding ways to enrich their learning as well. And also, disproportionality has been on our radar for a very, very long time. We don't talk a lot about discipline. It's usually in the realm of special ed, but I'll have to say our discipline disproportionality is a real number. One of our first steps in trying to identify and intersect that is to develop some really common language around disciplinary outcomes. So the discipline matrix was developed, it was shared with our secondary staff, so that common language hopefully will help us see some reduction in some of the disproportionality and discipline we've experienced over the last several years. And finally, our equity-focused professional development. Even in a time where there are 1,000 things going on, there are folks finding time to learn. We have a group of 34 district office leaders and site leaders who are joining a Becoming an Anti-Racist Educator series. That's a 9-part series, which means it's a commitment of 9 months with a session every month. That's nearly 2 hours long. So just to see so many of our educators interested in learning some concepts around becoming a better educator for diverse students is really encouraging. On top of that, we've got, HR is attending one that's related to diverse hiring. And we have just things happening across the district that are really, really encouraging in terms of building capacity for our system to move in the direction of equitable outcomes. And finally, our leaders at the site level are identifying teams made of stakeholders that are focused on having discussions about equity. So that is a big success for us. And obviously our challenges as well as finding the time to do effective professional development, but we will continue to explore opportunities to bring required training for implicit bias and making sure that we are getting more feedback on our draft for the equity plan to make sure that we hear the voices and amplify the voices of other stakeholders in our district. Attendance is another one. You will see and hear a little bit more about a new platform that we are launching. It is brand new right now, so I'm not going to spill the beans. I'll wait until Mr. Guillermo Lopez does that because this is his baby. But this attendance platform is really about identifying early on when we're seeing a student who will need intervention related to attendance. So it's designed to both promote and respond to attendance concerns. And we expect to see that that's going to have us get some energy around the positivity of attending, rewarding attendance in some way, and making sure that it's on the radar for all of our students. Obviously, the challenges are still real. COVID's a problem, so we still have high absenteeism rates. Right now, we're trending about 6.5% absenteeism, and we're also seeing that, COVID sickness is not the only reason why kids aren't coming to school. And if that were, we could handle that. But there are other reasons why our students are not coming. So part of our work is going to be to increase our SART process, which is a team review to make sure that we're identifying the causes, the root causes of absenteeism, and strengthening our SART process, which is our review board that will help us identify what community supports and services students need. And finally, our service others, probably our biggest one, it launched yesterday, was our COVID clinic. We are now offering COVID tests for our entire Palo Alto community and any family they want to bring. So we've gotten quite a lot of calls, had a few hiccups in our first week, but we expect that to smooth out very, very shortly. As we're going through this process, we are already primed for any additional services that are necessary should vaccinations become a question on the table. This team is prepared to do flu shots and whatever else we might need, but it's a discussion about where we're going to go with that. And then finally, I really have to say our Human Resources Office is really doing a lot of work on trying to build a positive climate at the district office. I think we've had more fun this year and worked harder this year than we ever have. But we have Trent Bahadur Singh here who comes up with really creative ways to engage the staff. And you've got to see some of the pictures. But we've had a really, really great time. And, it encourages folks to come to work. It supports our mental health initiative and goals. And it's fun to come to work, and the more we can enjoy our work, the more we will show up. So thanks Trent and his team for that as well. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great report. Well, we don't have any community comments. Do we have any board comments? Dr. DiBrienza? Dr. DiBrienza, followed by Mr. Dauber.
Great. First of all, thank you for that report. Thank you for all the work. It seems like not even an equity impact report. It seems like, there's a lot going on and it's fantastic. First, I want to thank you all for getting the COVID community testing and whatnot in. It just makes such a big difference in the past, since testing came out. I don't know how long that's been. It's all a blur. So many families have said to us, I'm so grateful my kid can get tested, but it's so hard for me to find a place to get tested now, especially as testing is less available than it used to be. So I think this really is making a difference for our families, is going to make a difference for our families. And I can't wait to learn more about the COVID vaccinations for the 5 to 11-year-olds once the county releases them to our partner. I had a few comments or questions. The first one having to do with attendance. Thank you for all the work that you're all doing there. When it talks about in the challenges, it is clear that our highest rates of absenteeism are among our Black, Pacific Islander, and Hispanic students. And what I don't see in here in next steps, although you just mentioned it here at the end, was I would imagine that's going to get better when it feels like a welcoming place to be. And I want to make sure that even though we're doing this, we're giving this attention to the symptom of absenteeism, that we continue to keep front and center in our steps that one of the causes of absenteeism, absenteeism probably isn't just a symptom. It isn't the problem itself, it's a symptom of a bigger problem. And so if our students are feeling the effects of systemic racism and bias and whatnot, it's going to be harder to come to school. So as well as doing all of these other next steps, I just want to make sure we keep front and center that one of the other next steps is working on the systemic racist problems, which in the other aspect of the equity report, you talk about a bunch. My last comment is just about, under the guise of equity, I'm concerned about the lack of time we have to do this, right? We've got a lot going on. And I know that in our October professional development, we had UDL for secondary, we had literacy for elementary. We're really trying to provide these opportunities for the anti-racism and systemic bias work. And there's just not enough days. I am glad that we have you as staff to figure out how to prioritize all this. But I'm wondering if, I'm going to mention two different types of staff members here. One staff member who is really interested in participating in the anti-racism work. Are there ways for them to do that? always, or are there times where there's just no time? And then what about staff members of any, whether it's classified or certificated or admin, if they are not interested in doing this work and we really want to push that, are there ways that we are making sure everyone engages in this work?
I will say that I've been pretty responsive to the needs of individuals who make requests. I am always on the search. Anybody will tell you, I'm always on the search for a new PD. Oftentimes I'm putting out information regarding PDs that are coming up that individuals can access, but many of them do ask. I think as a first start, our job is to make sure that we're identifying our non-negotiable for the pieces that we must have all of our staff engage in, and that's around that implicit bias work. So figuring out an appropriate module and an opportunity for that staff to do that training is important for us. And that is at the number one top of our list in terms of what we are, the questions we're trying to answer right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for all this work to everyone.
Mr. Dauber?
Thank you. I noticed reading the mental health update that there are some challenges in terms of CASI staffing of therapists in the elementary and high school. So I wonder if you could comment more about that and what the outlook looks like and what mitigation might look like.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it's been a challenge since the beginning of the year, actually. We have done a lot of work in trying to plug holes, but it's not sufficient and would be maybe in an ordinary year, but kids are coming back with higher needs. So with that reduction in staff, and I would say that reduction is trending around 5 or 6 at a time, we are seeing an impact in terms of the time a student has to wait to actually get support. We're seeing that delay more often at the elementary site, but we are also looking at ways to really try to identify what's really a tier 3 versus a tier 1 support. So triaging that, meaning that the kids who need it the most get the CASI level of service. But the kids who need it at tier 1, who need some social emotional skills and someone to talk to, that's tier 1 supports that our counselors, our psychologists can provide. So being able to really tease that apart is really going to be our challenge moving forward.
Does this seem like a longer term issue, or is this something that we should be addressing by?
Well, I have to tell you, the news has not been good from CASI. So we are planning around not getting the support that we need from CASI, although they are trying really, really hard. But this is a problem that's not unique to Palo Alto. It's across the region, the shortage. So we are likely to see that for some time now.
Ms. Conway, I'm just going to add to that our team is meeting with our entire team of district psychologists on Thursday to talk about how we can reallocate time and support students through direct services, something that they're all encouraged about also. So that's an additional piece that will occur this Thursday. In fact, we can update the board on how that goes.
Thank you. Great.
All right. Thank you again for the report. Okay, information items. There is one member of the public who wishes to speak on item 8A, DNF report. Kimberly Ang Lee. Ms. Ang Lee, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, Kimberly Ang Lee for the Palo Alto CAC. There's often little feedback on IEP goals in middle and high school when everyone's attention shifts to letter grades. So disaggregated DF reports and A to G course completion really are key metrics about special education students. They reflect not only content knowledge, but students' academic and task completion skills, their mental wellness, and their prospects for post-secondary education and employment. Earlier, I shared that PAUSD has 1,118 students with IEPs. More students with disabilities have 504 plans. Of our special ed students, 87% are identified with autism, specific learning disabilities, speech and language, or other health impairments like ADHD. Earlier tonight, we heard about, or just now, we've heard about the PAUSD focus areas, which is prioritizing those urgent and immediate needs for the school year within the PAUSD promise and that prioritizations due to COVID. Palo Alto CAC is fully supportive of this comprehensive and integrated work that's being done. But these DF reports and A to G reports from the last meeting, while they may seem routine, the staff has also gone to great lengths to report these metrics to the board and to the community. For students and families, the metrics matter, and subsequent actions to identify problem areas by school and by subject area matter. At the last meeting, staff expressed their intention to take a deeper dive into the reasons why students participating in special ed do not meet the A to G completion at similar rates to their peers. That's a great data-driven action step, but there was no discussion. It's logical to exclude students pursuing certificates of completion from the grade reports, but is there value in tracking students who exit from special ed to see their trajectory? Just as we might want to know how many special ed students leave our district, when and why. How will SAFE specialists work with case managers? What kind of study skills and time management skills need to be learned and how? Are students getting private instruction for executive functioning or content teaching or reteaching, and why? Can the board please have a public discussion of this DF report? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ang Lee. Board members, any comments? Okey doke. And any future discussions about this will be on the agenda setting to agendize. All right, that's it. Board members, if you have anything to speak about on 8B, let me know. And we don't. Okay, board operations. Colleagues, anything to report? Nothing to report. Well, that's our meeting, folks. Thank you very much for coming. We are adjourned.